Good afternoon. I'm Wayne Dolcefino, and from the sights and of the crowd out here, this is damn important, all you folks, and I appreciate it. I want you guys to clap so that people can hear you and your anger about this. Now, so no one is confused, you're not clapping for the government-financed housing project that is going up over here and down the road there at Carolina Memorial. What you're looking at behind us is really a legalized public corruption real estate racket. That, at the very heart, is what this is. I know I'm preaching to the choir because I live a block off Brays Bayou, but the people that are in front and behind of us today all are watching what's going on in Florida and get a little PTSD, a little flashback to a hurricane named Harvey. That was their Ian. And the flooding here was reprehensible and in a lot of ways could have been prevented. But if places like this are allowed to go back, it's really insult to injury, because not only have we taken down a bunch of not only beautiful but very important flood protecting trees to build this, but these people won't pay a dime to share the burden the next time there's a flood. I don't know how many of you folks know this, but these people will pay no property taxes. Tens of millions of dollars over the next 75 years. That's the deal with the devil your mayor and his corrupt housing authority have made here. I mean, in a way, you can't really blame the private developers because they've got a sweetheart deal, right? They're getting to build apartment complexes for about 2/3 of the money because taxes are 1/3 of the operating cost of an apartment complex. They don't care that they're going to be adding more than 1,000 cars to very dangerous intersections already. They don't care that they're going to flood into the ditches that nobody seems to really want to take maintenance control of, right? They don't care. Now, they'll tell you, if you believe the developers, don't worry, we're not going to flood in that ditch. Our giant slabs, our giant concrete, oh, don't worry, it's going to flood the other way, and you can trust us because our hydrologists, the ones we pay for, said, well, it's just going to be fine, folks, don't worry about it. That's what they want you to believe. We asked under open records for communications between your City of Houston Housing Authority and the Harris County Flood Control District, figuring they would really be wanting to make sure that they weren't agreeing to be partners in something that would be bad for the neighborhoods around it. Not a single email communication. Not a single communication for records from the Flood Control District. In fact, when they first started working on this deal in 2019, in secret, lying to you about even where many of these projects were going up. You know that? They sometimes don't even put down the addresses. They don't want you to know, okay? That's the simple reality. And it's a testimony that so many of you folks have shown up today. Can we stop this? I don't know. Your mayor doesn't care, okay? He just doesn't, okay? Probably never did, but they've approved more than 100 of these projects in the last 2 years. They approve 10 every month or so, okay? All over town. That's the reality. We're giving away tens, hundreds of millions of dollars in property taxes. We're building apartment complexes where they should not be built, okay? We have a number of speakers Your councilwoman is Mary Ann Huffman. I want to have her go first.
Thank you, thank you. I might hold this, so this might be better. I'm Councilmember Mary Ann Huffman, and we're here today because the Houston Housing Authority has authorized developers to build 2 large apartment complexes in this area less than a mile apart. Now, we all know the devastation that Harvey had on this area. Yes. I was one of the ones who flooded when the dams were released. You know, my in-laws lived in Fleetwood, Lori and Eli Huffman, and we watched the water on their security cameras rise until they eventually lost power. You know, it's hard to understand how much a flood affects somebody's life until you've actually gone through it. Amen. And it's not just the financial impact it has on a family, you know, depleting your savings, going through your retirement. It's about the being displaced, not even being displaced for over a year, you know? It takes an enormous emotional toll on a person, on a community, the anxiety that you feel every time it starts to rain, how my kids want to take everything with them when they leave the house because if you leave it at home, you may never see it again. The constant reminders when you look around the house of things that are unfinished or not fixed because you've run out of time, energy, and money to keep going. And unless you've been through it, it's really hard to understand it. You know, I hope we never have to go through anything like that again, but I don't have a lot of confidence that we will be safe. Because over the last 5 years, not a whole lot has changed. If another Harvey happened tomorrow, we would be in the exact same position we were in 5 years ago. And now we have these 2 large complexes going up, which means more people, more concrete, more strain on our already failing infrastructure. And nobody got notice. The residents didn't receive letters. We didn't know. We deserve better. We deserve transparency. We deserve to know what's happening in our neighborhoods. And we deserve to have a group of Houston Housing Authority board members that are held accountable, that aren't serving when their terms are all expired. We deserve a housing authority who makes decisions based on what's best for the residents in the city of Houston.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
You know, since learning about this, I've been fighting. I have tried to get information from the city of Houston, from the Houston Housing Authority, and the limited information that I have received, I have passed it along. You know, I sent a newsletter yesterday, and it has come to my attention that maybe some of you didn't receive that newsletter, and it went out to the same distribution list it always goes to, so I'm not sure why that happened. But I want us all to be on the same page. So when developers from Carolina Memorial, when they sent me information, I copied it word for word and passed it along to you. It was not an endorsement of that project or this one. So I want to be real clear, you know, when Steve Wormel from the West Houston info page insinuates that I'm in favor of these projects, that is false. I have the same concerns that you do. My office has been working exclusively for the last couple of months on this issue. I have the same concerns. I'm concerned these projects are too big. I'm concerned that they're exempt from paying taxes to the city of Houston, Harris County Flood Control, to our school districts. Money that would typically go back in to help with the strain it's going to put on this infrastructure. So today we need to be united. And today we're asking the city of Houston, the Housing Authority, and the developers to be careful with our neighborhoods. We love it here. We really do. And these projects, they affect us. They affect the flooding, the traffic, the roads, the first responders. It affects every single one of us. So we're here today to ask, be careful, stop these developments.
Yeah.
I'd like to bring up Bob Rawson now to talk to you a little more about flooding, and then guy behind me, your former Congressman John Culberson, will be coming up in a couple of minutes. Go.
I'm a resident of Fleetwood West. Listening to Mary Nann, she said people worry about.
It's on, but you got to talk loud.
Sorry, a little bit closer, I guess. Listening to Mary Nann talk about worry about flooding, my wife will tell you that every time we have a heavy rain, I don't sleep. I just pace around the house watching the water. Water in the streets, water in the ditch, hoping that it doesn't get close enough to our house. Fleetwood West subdivision is the division just on the other side of Attucks Howell over here, right next to the development. We have concerns about the potential impact of the apartments on the drainage of water and on potential flooding. The ditch where the water runs away in heavy rains is just on the other side of Attucks Howell, close to Fleetwood West. But partway along along Attucks Howell, the water goes under Attucks Howell into the area of the apartments. In heavy rains, the existing drainage before the apartments was barely able to keep up with the water that we would get. In fact, a lot of the water that comes down the ditch, because it can't evacuate fast enough, ends up coming across at Fleetwood Place Drive into Fleetwood and Fleetwood West. And a number of houses in Fleetwood and Fleetwood West have flooded multiple times over the last 10, 15 years. The construction crews have removed acres of grass and lots of large trees that would absorb the water and help with the flooding situation. And the apartments would essentially eliminate all of the absorption of water. That would add to the burden of the existing drainage. So now we've got the drainage from the existing ditch plus the drainage from this area over here that would have been absorbed, having to mix together and all of it flow down to Buffalo Bayou, which is going to make the situation even worse. In addition, the construction and the occupation or development of this area has the potential to inhibit the flow of the water that used to flow to Buffalo Bayou if it doesn't have a clear path, since it has to flow through the area of the apartments. So the drainage solution must include both the existing need for water drainage and the added water from the apartments. And it's not clear to me that this concern has been addressed at all, and much less that adequate solutions have been incorporated in any development or requirement plans for the future. Thank you, and thanks to my helpers here.
He's your former congressman when your congressman really focused on things that mattered in the West Side. John Culberson.
Thank you very much. Wayne, thank you. Thank you so very much, and thank you, Wayne. I want to tell you very briefly about what I'm volunteering and helping you with to resolve this problem in the short term, and then make a couple of suggestions for the longer term. And to tell you what a joy it is for me to be here to help you. I'm sorry we're going through this, but I have a special bond of affection for you, for all of your neighbors in Fleetwood and Barker's Landing and Marywood and this entire area. I've always been extraordinarily fond of you and care about you individually. I've been proud to represent you, as Wayne said, since 1986 when you first sent me to the Texas House, and then when you sent me to Congress in 2001. I have learned a great deal and had a great opportunity because of that privilege you gave me to learn about all the different levels of government and about the source of a lot of these problems. I was here with you when Hurricane Harvey hit. I vividly remember, in fact, before Harvey hit, And because my brother Christopher lives here, he lives in Fleetwood. Another reason I've been so fond of you, Chris is a year and a half younger than me, the world's best brother. We fought like cats and dogs when we were kids, and as now that we're older, I realize he's my best friend on earth. He's a great brother. He's the one that looks after the security. He does all the security cameras. That's Christopher, and he volunteers for it. He's been able to fix anything electronic since he was a little kid. He's a problem solver, and Christopher got me out here. But when Harvey was leaving the Yucatan Peninsula and coming this way, Christopher and Steve, who's here, and several of y'all got me focused on this ditch right here along Attucks Howell Road, and it was clogged. And as you said, the ditch was clogged underneath Memorial. And I contacted the city of Houston, and they said, that's not our ditch, it's not our problem. So that's TxDOT's problem. So I contacted TxDOT, and they said, no, that's City of Houston's problem. And so while I was going back and forth on your behalf with the City of Houston and TxDOT to figure out who was going to clean out the ditch so the water could flow as it does south into the bayou, Hurricane Harvey hit. So that's a contested ditch anyway. Either the city or the TxDOT think they've got jurisdiction over it. But you notice the developer very cleverly, he's found a way to ooze into a crack here. I can't believe anybody can build anything on that tiny triangle of land. Is absurd to begin with, but their driveway touches Attucks Howell. And TxDOT rules think that means they don't need a TxDOT permit. So they've got a city permit, but they don't have a TxDOT permit. So my first priority is to make sure that they've got a TxDOT permit, or they don't go forward. Or they stop. They're done. And the developer's trying to tell TxDOT that the water flows north. I don't believe that's right. So I'm helping to make sure. You know, I had the privilege of working with TxDOT. My very first promise to you as a congressman was that I was going to expand that miserable Katy Freeway from 6 lanes, open it up so we could breathe and have a proper traffic flow in West Houston. And it was a lot of fun and a real privilege for me to help get that. That was the largest freeway construction project in the history of the United States. We were able to get it done in 4 years, which is a record. They did a magnificent job on it, and I got to know all the TxDOT engineers. And working with a lot of those wonderful people, I've kept those friendships up and running over this in this time. And so I've called on those friends at TxDOT. I've been communicating with them and the district engineer, pointing out to them the deficiencies and the problems that this project has got, pointing out that the water does not flow north, the water all flows south, and that they've got to have a proper TxDOT hydrology survey. They've got to have, they have to prove that they're not going to add to flooding in these neighborhoods before they can go forward. And if they don't have the permit, they can't build it. So that's the first place I'm focusing on to stop them in their tracks. I will also make sure that I'm going to make sure they cross every T and dot every I. And I will also work closely with our new state representative for this area. I'll work with Bono. I will work with Mary Nann to do all that I can to help make sure that this problem, not only this problem, but it doesn't happen elsewhere. Because I've discovered in the time that I've had the privilege of representing you that so many of these problems can be solved by some common sense. And most importantly, sunlight. You know, sunlight's a very good disinfectant for crooked deals. It cleans out bacteria and roaches. And one thing that I want to recommend to you, and that I'll be working with our friends in the state legislature, and again, as a private citizen on your behalf, to make sure that the law is changed so that no elected official and no family member can benefit financially from any of these deals in the future, or the deal is dead. It's void. If any board member of the governing entity that's responsible for the deal, if a board member or an employee benefits financially, or a family member benefits financially, the deal is dead and can't go forward. And then finally, if they don't, because a bank would insist on the same things, they ought to be held to the same standard that any private financial deal would be held to with a private bank. And in that regard, if for example, the project does not comply with every aspect of the Open Records Act, of all the requirements of sunshine that are already there in the law that are not being enforced, the deal is dead and cannot go forward. That will... Because one thing I've learned on representing you, and what a joy and a privilege it's been for the time since Wayne and I got together, it was January of 1987, and a lot of fun. And he helped me I was also the first elected official to use a computer to talk to constituents on the internet, and I couldn't get access to the computer, and they wouldn't let me publish bills or the daily votes. And Wayne ran a great story that said that the Speaker and the leadership of the legislature was hiding things from the public and wouldn't let the public see what was going on in state government on the internet, on the computer. This was just dialing into my personal computer. Anyway, it was a great story. I was not a popular guy with the Speaker, but I've enjoyed working with this good man for a long time. And the fundamental rule has always been, as I've learned with Wayne and in so many other instances, is that you follow the money. If it's always about the money. And if you apply sunshine and a little common sense and make sure that every deal that's done, particularly using tax dollars, is done honestly, ethically, above board, and without any possibility of a conflict of interest, you will solve a world of problems. So let's not just solve it for us today. Let's make sure we're protecting Fleetwood and Barker and everyone who lives here. Let's solve it for the future and make sure nobody else has to go through this anywhere in Texas. Thank you very much.
Obviously, your current Congresswoman isn't here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll be willing to join that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm in. Listen, as I was getting ready to say, John's here, obviously, your former congressman, your Congresswoman, Lizzie Fletcher, obviously couldn't take the time to come, but I do want to point out, not to be partisan or anything, but Johnny Teague, who's running for Congress for this district, is here. So if you want to say hi to him, it's obviously important to Johnny. John Cabanis lives over in Memorial Thicket, which is over there by the Kickerillo property. I'm sure those folks made a bunch of money selling out. Anyway, John, come on up.
Well, thank you for all coming today. I'm going to talk more about, I'll say it in two. I'm going to talk more about things that start with two words, Hurricane Harvey, and, okay, got it. In our neighborhood, my family lives just south of the project at Carolina Memorial. Our fence line is in the same area, butts each other, and that ditch, there's a drainage easement there. That's the old oxbow at Buffalo Bayou that they cut off when they straightened Buffalo Bayou. So when Buffalo Bayou floods, everything backs up to where we are. And Kickerillo lived there for many, many years. And then when he flooded in Harvey, he bulldozed his own home down and gave it up. So that should tell you something. Anyway, so during Harvey, that did flood. And our home was one of the later homes built in the neighborhood. We got less than 3 feet of flood, but next to us and in the other homes around us, they got nearly 6 feet of water in their homes. And I got called by my neighbor's husband that said that his wife was at home alone. She was handicapped. He was down in Port O'Connor where Hurricane Harvey was supposed to do the damage before it flooded us up here. So I went over to check on her on the Monday after the flooding really got bad. And she was laying in bed and the water was starting to lap over her mattress when I was able to get her out through all of the wood floors that were floating everywhere in the house. So I'm really concerned that we don't know really what the studies have shown of the impacts of these developments. Because imagine a 4-story building, 334 apartments in it at that location, trying to evacuate in a situation like that when the roads are flooded, there's no power. If somebody's handicapped, they can't use an elevator. You got to carry them down the stairs. The fire protection can't all get in here. The fire rescue team can't all get in here. We ultimately got rescued at the end of the day on Monday when we finally realized that notwithstanding the fact we didn't think we would ever flood, we ended up being those people with trash bags full of stuff and our pets jumping into a flat-bottom boat of volunteer firefighters from the state, not the city of Missouri. And they were down here pre-positioned to help out when all this started. And they got us out, and we couldn't go back for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, when I could go back, I still had to wear waders to get into my home. So it was very, very bad. So I don't trust, because I haven't seen any evidence that they've done anything to change that situation. So my family, my daughter and her family, evacuated from further down east on Buffalo Bayou in Nottingham, because they do typically have a flood issue when it's even rains hard in their neighborhood. So they came to our house on Sunday morning, and by Sunday night, the rain started coming again, the water started coming up, the dams were opened, and by Monday morning, they were being rescued by her husband's uncle, who was able to borrow 2 jet skis to come in and start taking them out in jet skis. And part of the family was also rescued, and our neighbors were rescued on a large boat that came through the neighborhood, a large fishing boat, not a little flat bottom boat, a pleasure kind of craft as well. But that's how deep the water was. And we had people actually drown in that area. So, it's a life or death deal. And I really feel for the people in Florida right now. I'm having a little PTSD about it as well, because they're talking about all the things that go on, how long it takes to recover, who has been identified that's missing, who's going to search these apartment buildings room by room and make sure everybody's out. I mean, it's just, I don't know, where's the evidence that this has all been rectified before you go build all this there again? So thank you, that's all I have.
Good catch. Aubrey Haynes also lives in Memorial Thicket. She's going to talk to us a little bit about Fleetwood. Oh, sorry, in Fleetwood. I'm sorry.
I'm not Aubrey.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Fleetwood.
Aubrey, get over here. I was doing this in line.
You sound like my wife.
Can Janice and Randy and Angie get in order? So I don't look stupid again. Thank you. Aubrey from Fleetwood. And there's a lot of neighborhoods, and I don't want folks to get too focused on one particular neighborhood, because there are so many neighborhoods that are going to be impacted, and not just by what's going on across the street, but what's going on down the street, and what is going to happen in the next few months in other neighborhoods. As I tell you, the Housing Authority is doing 10 of these real estate racket deals a month, okay? A month. In 1 month, they did 14, okay? Anyway, Aubrey, come on up. Let's talk about some of the other issues like traffic and... Ready?
Thank you, Wayne. As Wayne mentioned, I live in Fleetwood with my lovely
Closer to your mouth.
with my lovely wife, Donna. We've lived here for almost a decade. And I'm a retired commercial real estate developer.
Hold it right up there.
Commercial real estate developer. I know that's a bad word right now, but unlike these guys across the street, we paid our taxes, and we continue to pay our taxes, and we processed in a normal fashion our permits, all our regulatory requirements. We process those like any normal development would.
Talk louder. Close to your lips.
Wow.
If you put it close to your mouth.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Right up there.
All right. Sorry about that. And we paid our taxes. We processed our permits. We did everything that you're supposed to do as a responsible developer. We're very proud of those projects today. That regulatory processing experience allows me to review submittals that would ordinarily be submitted with a permit application. This instance, relative to traffic, how many of you believe this 300 unit complex over here, shoehorned on this small site, is going to introduce lots of traffic problems? It will be a nightmare. Unfortunately, I'm commenting strictly on the executive summary of the traffic impact study that was provided to us. The city has been stingy and won't allow us to have the full 400-page traffic impact analysis. Who knows? Who knows?
45 years, if you want to know anything about traffic at this intersection, talk to me.
So going through that TIA, I noticed a lot of what I would consider flaws in it. As you know, this 300 unit complex is shoehorned in here, and it provides very limited opportunity for access egress. The one access egress point is on Addicks Howe, and if you come out Addicks Hell, yeah.
It will become.
Yeah, exactly. Then with the proposed street improvements they're proposing, your only opportunity will be to turn right. So if you need to go south on Highway 6, you're forced to go south or east on Memorial.
That's right.
And somewhere, I guess, maybe Fleetwood, maybe Barker's Landing, you have to go turn around and come back, introducing even more of an issue. So it'll be overburdened in the base case. Also, this TIA assumes a standalone project. It doesn't account for what else is happening. The other developments anywhere in the area, a mile away, are not included. So, and further, it only assumes a 1% growth annually. How many of you believe that we're only going to grow our traffic 1% annually? As was mentioned earlier by John, they don't have text dot approval yet, and hopefully they don't get it. But so this TI. It only assumes a net gain of 151 trips, vehicle trips, in the early morning hours for 300 units. And ordinarily, when you would assume something like that, you would assume that there's services nearby, walkability. Unfortunately, unless you're going to buy some vape or you're going to get coffee, there's really not a walkability opportunity for those folks. These kind of suburban projects have much more demand for traffic and demand than an urban project would, because they're walkable. They have secured ability to walk either through a submerged tunnel or elevated above grade. None of that's present here. So I don't think some of those standards really apply. Also, this TIA suggests that Public Works, and I'm going to introduce Janice here in a minute, she's going to speak to the Public Works Department, but that these improvements will be had through a partnership with them on Memorial. The improvements will make this traffic out here squeeze down. And when there's a city bus or a school bus, it's going to be an absolute nightmare. So I know. And the only public availability to get anywhere is the bus. Exactly. I won't burden you with all the silliness that's in that TIA. but a lot of it is just boilerplate language that was put together rather hurriedly, if you ask me, just to have something. So those are my main observations. There's lots more. I won't burden you with those, but I will tell you that it's garbage. Their TIA is garbage. Janet, sorry.
I'm Janice Mecklenburg, and I've lived in Fleetwood West since 1989. I have never seen this intersection at Attucks Howell Road and Memorial as bad as I've seen it in the last couple years. And the thing that really aggravates me is that as bad as it was, the minute those trees came down, the traffic doubled or tripled in an instant. I've been working with the Public Works Department before those trees came down, trying to get a traffic light at this intersection. Hopefully they could coordinate with that one so it wouldn't cause traffic delays, because when they send you their little marketing piece on traffic lights, they say one of the disadvantages is it slows down the traffic. So I pointed out to them that if we had a traffic light here, it's almost the exact same distance as the traffic light between I-10 on Eldridge and the oil companies, so they can get their employees in and out after work. Okay, they don't seem to think that that's true, because there's like a half of a tenth of a mile difference. Also, I did get a plan that they have had in progress before I started talking to them, and that's what they think they can do at this intersection using concrete dividers. So here is a picture of it. The fat white is concrete. The straight white is paint. So if you look at this, along the middle of the road, there will be a straight line, so anything coming north on Attucks Howell will be forced to turn left. They will not be allowed to forced to turn right. They will not be allowed to turn left. Now, traffic coming down Memorial can go straight, it can turn on Attucks Howell going south, and it can turn going left. Traffic going west will be able to turn left on Attucks Howell or go straight, but it cannot turn left onto Attucks Howell going south. Now, if you're coming Attucks Howell going this way, you can only make left turn or a right turn, but you cannot go straight. So, as I looked at this, it may have some potential to help our situation. However, when you start thinking about some of the routine activity that this intersection has to serve, such as a school bus, it doesn't make a lot of sense, and here's why. They can't get to that property to pick up school kids, and you've got Wolf, and you've got a junior high and a senior high way out in Katy. Now, the buses from Katy will come in I-10, they'll go down Highway 6, they'll come in through Memorial and make their left turn. Now, when they come out, they can turn right and get into Fleetwood to start picking up the Fleetwood kids. That's great. Now, Wolf. Wolf is the dangerous one, because if they come down here and those concrete dividers are there, they have to turn left, then they go to Highway 6, then they turn right, and when they get down, they have to cross 3 lanes of rush hour traffic with angry drivers, no stoplight. And when I talk to Public Works, I call this dead man's curve, because they come in and they're not making a right turn. They're making something I learned in geometry class when I was a kid, which is like this, and there's big ditches. Look at this ditch right out here. Just a day before those fences went in, one of our homeowners was hit by a car coming out of Attucks Howell, T-boned, forced her in the ditch with her child in the car. And I sent it immediately to Public Works, because when I sent them my email and sent a presentation to Houston Housing Authority and the City Council, I had a picture of one of our cars head first down in the ditch. And they said, oh, well, that doesn't happen all the time. So I immediately got this picture and I sent it to them, and I haven't heard a word. But it's not a regular thing, but it's not uncommon. So, the traffic study that he's talking about, I don't know if you can see this, but you see the triangle in white, and then you see 3 flags. On their traffic study, they put 2 computers somewhere out here in computer land, They put 2 computers and decided after this complex is built, there will be a 1% increase on Memorial Drive, there will be a 1% increase on Highway 6, and 0 on Attucks Howell. We already experienced double or triple just with no trees. So that's specious reasoning. So I have a real problem with that. Now I will say, when you're dealing with city government, state government, they're bureaucratic. So the people that I'm talking to are trying to help, but they've got layers above them and protocols. Then even if this whole department wants to do something, like John pointed out, well, now there's TxDOT. So one of the challenges we have is, how do we get bureaucracies to collaborate and get something done that makes sense? So as I see it, we've got some problems. First problem is immediate. What do we need to have now? And putting up that fence really has helped a lot, I think. But what can we do now, immediately, to put something to make this a safe intersection? After the apartments go in, if they continue to go in, what can we do to make sure school buses don't end up on a February morning when it's really dark and there's a storm and the school bus driver can't see where the ditch is and the bus goes in head first into a ditch, just like that car went into a ditch over here. So what do we have to do in the future? So there's an immediate question, there's a future question. And the biggest issue right now is bureaucracy. When I talked to them about the light, they said, well, in order to do the light, we have to wait for the apartments to be finished. Then we do a new traffic study with the computers. And then it's going to take fundraising to get they said it would be around $450,000 to put in a traffic light. So it can't be, apparently they don't approve the ones like we have at Crossroads. It has to be something with a metal arm that goes across. So that's very expensive. So even on a highly optimistic timeline, we're looking for 5 years out. I think that's unacceptable. Thank you.
I'm bringing up Randy and Angie next. If we have anybody who speaks Spanish as a first or second language, Telemundo's here. They know better than to ask a Dolcefino. I can speak Italian a little bit, but no Spanish. But Randy Crump, Angie Buzeron, they're the next 2 speakers. I know it's getting a little hot. We're going to try to make it as quick as we can.
Thank you. Thank you. My name's Randy Crump. I live in Fleetwood right over here. I got a question for you. Are there any taxpayers here? Yeah. Any taxpayers at all? You pay your taxes? Guess what? The owners of this new development, no taxes. Down the street, the owner of that development, no taxes. My focus is a little bit broader than these 2 projects, though. This impacts every taxpayer in Harris County. These aren't the only 2 projects that the Houston Housing Authority has approved over the last 3 years. There are dozens, just like these 2. They have literally taken hundreds of millions of dollars of real property off the tax roll. Specifically with these 2 projects, between the 2, it's $2.7 million tax dollars per year. That's $1.2 million that would go to KDISD, and another $1.3 million that would go to the city of Houston and Harris County. That burden gets pushed to all of us. They're not going to change anything because these 2 projects aren't paying taxes. They're just going to raise the tax rate on everybody else. So, and this is all being done by Houston Housing Authority, and frankly, every taxpayer should be outraged. Houston Housing Authority is not elected, they're appointed, they're under nobody's control. I can't vote for them, you can't vote for them. We can't tell them what to do at the ballot box. So that's what we have here. This, Wayne calls it a corruption. It's certainly a very, very serious breach of the public trust to be taking our tax dollars out of the taxing entities that need them, the schools, for the police, for the firemen. And hopefully this will have some impact in the future that Houston Housing Authority can be reined in. Thank you.
All right, I'm the last speaker, so bear with us. All right, so my name's Angie. I'm a resident at Memorial Thicket, been here 9 years. Thank you. Thank you, Memorial Thicket people. So yes, I was here when we flooded, our house flooded. And I know we've all come out today to hear about various aspects of these developments that concern us. But I want to share with you all that, you know, when we first found out about these buildings, and you know, because they didn't do their due diligence, we had to go fact-finding ourselves. And I know a lot of our neighbors tirelessly were working in the background trying to get all the information that we could get as concerned tax-paying citizens of this community. So we could have never foreseen what we uncovered, which we've kind of touched on. I know Wayne's touched on it. We uncovered a real estate scam, which is not what we were expecting. And I'll share with you, there are 43 similar tax-exempt developments around Houston, all owned by Lakeside Place PFC. Now, why is that interesting? Do we know who Lakeside PFC is? Well, I'll tell you. They have the exact same board as the Houston Housing Authority. Yeah, exactly. This is a huge conflict of interest. Huh?
It's disgraceful.
Oh yeah, it's a disgrace. So the HHA, and they're appointed by old Sly Turner, our mayor, they all have these expired terms. These guys are also on the board of the PFC that buys the land for the low-income apartment complexes and then gives a 75 to 99-year lease to developers to build them. Right. Then exempts the developers from billions of dollars in taxes, including sales tax per year. And they do this, right, because they're promising a certain number of low-income housing to get the tax-exempt status, which would be great, a lovely idea, if they were actually doing it, which they're not. So digest that, right? So they're not providing the low-income housing units, but they still have the tax-exempt status for 75 to 99 years, right? So if that weren't bad enough, here's the kicker. This is what made me angry enough to bring my little kid out here today and speak to all of you. We have documented proof that Sly Turner is approving the use of federal funds that were allocated to the city of Houston and to Harris County after Harvey. And this money is being redirected to Lakeside Place PFC to help get these properties built.
That's the money I helped get. That's the money I helped get.
Yes,
for our neighborhoods. I helped get that money for us through the appropriations process. It was meant for us to stop flooding.
$1.2 billion was allocated to the city of Houston. $1.2 billion was allocated to Harris County. And that money was meant for the residents who were impacted to rebuild their homes, to rebuild their businesses, and to prevent future flood disasters.
Exactly.
Now, I don't know about you, and I know a lot of you, did anybody see a dime of this money? Was anybody approved to receive these funds? No.
The minute I was gone,
yeah, the money was gone. Exactly. And I haven't seen any mitigation either. I mean, and Mary said it. Unfortunately, tomorrow we have the same storm. We have the same scenario, guys. The same scenario playing out in our neighborhoods. And I mean, insult to injury, that they are taking the money that was meant for us. And we are literally standing across the street from the cause of our flood, and we are going to add 643 new residences to 2 plots of land that were under water 5 years ago. And, you know, everybody should be furious. I want to leave you with one thought, and I don't know what will happen with the future of these developments, but guys, this is not a partisan issue. This isn't blue, this isn't red, this isn't a social justice issue. This is corruption, pure and simple.
Good Hey guys, thanks very much for joining us. I think next stop should be City Hall. I will tell you, the mayor will tell you he has no control over the Houston Housing Authority. I'm telling you, he is a liar. The texts and emails prove this entire board is appointed by the mayor. They report to the mayor. They also report to Commissioner Ellis's wife, but that's another story. But this entire board belongs to him. Every board member who has questioned any of these real estate deals has been replaced in a matter of weeks. So when we tell you this is a real estate racket, this is not just about some private developers trying to do some apartments for folks who make just about the average of most folks in town. This is not about that. These people will likely flip these projects in a couple of years and pass off their property tax savings to somebody else. These are real estate deals, folks. They don't care about you. You have to scream loud and hard to make them hear. Thank you. Give a round of applause for yourself.